Hi everyone, I hope you can see the video and I hope the audio quality is good. Maybe let's wait a few more seconds and we can get started. Thanks, Tim. Cool. And apologies for missing last in-person session. I came to Sydney for work. Unfortunately, I'm still here. I'll see you all. Maybe I will skip the next one too. I'll see you all in August. Cool. So in today's session, we will focus more on tool usage, which is also called function calling. So Claude introduced a new concept called tools, which is also called function calling. We briefly have done some work last time, like 1 month ago, but now they improved their overall system and also they introduced a few more things. And if you see at the bottom, you will see legacy beta, which is tools 2024, April 4. We were using this one, but now they changed everything and they introduced a few other things. So in today's session, we will learn to how to use Anthropic Claude 3 tools, things like that. Cool. I will also share a few more links. This one, developer console. So you can go to this link and here you can register and create API keys. Yeah, you can create API keys, create key and type something and click create key and you will get some key. Once you got the key, what you can do is you can use any code editor like Visual Studio Code, and here let me show you. Okay, so this is my folder structure. So currently we are going to stock market folder. I'm reading a message. First time I'm attending something in this meetup. Where can I find info on the Slack channel? I think if you go to meetup.com, there you will find some email ID. You can send us the email and Tim or Annie will add you to the Slack. Cool. And in our Slack channel, you can see previous code and previous meetup events. Thanks, Anand. Okay, so first of all, to use Anthropic Claude 3, you have to create an API key. To create API key, you can go to the link I shared, click create API key, you will get some API key, copy the API key, then in this folder structure, I have a file called .environment. So how that looks like is, that looks like this. Anthropic underscore API underscore key equal to, here you can paste the API key. Then you can save it. Then you can load the API key like using .environment library. Cool. Let me zoom a little bit. Okay, So first of all, I'm going to upgrade the library. To upgrade the library, you can do pip install anthropic -- upgrade. Okay, so currently I'm using the version 0.28.1. So let's comment this. Then you can run pip install python -dot environment if you have an installed dot environment library. Otherwise, you can run this code that will load all the environment variables that's in dot environment file. Then you can load the API key, os.get environment, Anthropic API key. Now the API key is stored in this variable. Then you can import Anthropic and client as Anthropic. Here you can pass the API key. So let's run this. So yeah, client is ready. Maybe I'll quickly show you similar one. Okay, so this is my model. There are few models, Haiku and Opus and Sonnet. So Haiku is like cheapest and fastest. If the task is easy, you can use Haiku. If the task is very complex, you can use Opus or Sonnet. So I usually start with Haiku. Then if the Haiku is not performing too well, I might change to Sonnet and see how that goes. Otherwise, I'll use Opus. So this is the model name, Claude -3 Haiku 2024 March 7. So let's run this. Then client is Anthropic API key as API key. Then once client is ready, in the client you can type client.messages.create. Here you can add a few things. One is what is the model name? We use Haiku model, so that's Haiku. Then max tokens. So this is the maximum number of tokens the model going to run. Once it reaches 1000, it will stop. And it doesn't mean like it has to develop 1000 tokens. At maximum, it will develop 1000 tokens. If your question is very easy and it can answer in 2 or 3 tokens, it will just finish it in 3 tokens and you can save a lot of money there. So let's run this. Okay, we got some output. It took 7 seconds. My question is top places to visit in Sydney. And the model says these places, which looks good. So the things here, what we have done so far is we try to use client messages API. Here you can ask any questions like top places to visit in Sydney, and also you can set some system message. So system message is like a creating some role for the model. For example, you are an expert travel guide who communicates in French. Let's run this. Now you got the response, everything in French. Cool. So that's the use for system message. Cool. I think Gary asking, is there an invite for Slack channel? I think you can go to our meetup.com. There you will find some email ID. You can just send us an email and Tim or Annie will send you an invite for Slack. Maybe next time we will try to send you all a message, like people who are enrolled for the meetup. We will send some email so that you can join automatically before joining the session. Cool. Okay. So this messages API, uses some model, and you will get some response. Then let's say you're asking some questions like, what's current weather in Sydney? Maybe top places to visit in Sydney based on today's weather. So let's ask this question. It says based on current weather condition in Sydney, it recommends something, but maybe let's ask like, what's the current temperature? Okay, I think current temperature is like 10 degree in my place. So now it says, let's run this. Unfortunately, I don't have access to real-time weather data for Sydney. As an AI assistant without a direct connection to weather services, I don't have the ability to provide the current temperature in Sydney. However, I can still suggest some top places to visit in Sydney based on typical weather conditions this time of year. Here are a few recommendations, and it answers something. It tried to be helpful even though it doesn't know the or doesn't have access to the current weather. So this is the one of the issues, or um, some maybe some issues in large language model. It doesn't have access to real information. So to fix this, what we can do is we can create some or we can write code to access to some API. Then the API will, in the API you just ask what's the weather in Sydney, like you pass city as Sydney, and it will give you some response. Then you can pass that response to the Haiku or any model. Then the model uses that information to answer everything. So here exactly what we are going to do is we are going to introduce tools, which is also called function calling. The tools will access to real-time information, and then based on that information our model will answer better. So let's do that. Before that, let's go here. Slate's saying love Haiku, use it a lot for simple tasks as well as code generation. Yeah, exactly, it's super fast and cheap. Thanks, Slate. Cool. Okay, so now let's go to a notebook. Okay, I think Tim replied on YouTube. You will find some email ID, skypiproject@gmail.com. Since we can't share the email ID directly on the chat, Tim just said it's Skypi project and it's Google's email. So skypiproject@gmail.com. Send us an email, and we will add you on our Slacks. Cool. Okay. So now let's go to tool use. Okay. So in tool use, maybe we will try to learn something and then we will do our project. So I'm going to copy this code. Okay, I copied. Let's run this. Since they are using Opus, it might take a little bit longer. Opus is a powerful model which is bigger in size compared to Haiku. Okay, so this is super interesting. Maybe let me show you the response and we can take it from there. This response is difficult to read. Let me zoom this a little bit. Okay, so here you can see the models thinking. The get weather tool, this is the models thinking, and um, since the required location parameter can be populated with San Francisco, California, we have all necessary information to proceed with calling the get weather tool to answer the question. So it knows all the information, and it also knows what function to use. Here you can see get weather, and if you see the response, it has content, then it also has few other things. So let's try to access this one, tool use block. Okay, let me call this. So let's run this. Function name. So the function name is get weather, and function input location San Francisco, California. So these are the things directly coming from model. If you see the response, it has two things. Maybe let me print response dot content. So content 0, this is a text block dot text. So here you can see it says that this is the one. Then if you access the second response, that will tell you about the function, what to call, what to do. And here you can see ID. Let me print one by one. Dot ID. So each function call has some ID. Then let's print the second one, input. You can see the input. Input is location San Francisco, California. And let's call what is the function name? Dot name. And you can see get weather. So all these information are here. And what is the type? The type is tool use. Here we are doing tool usage. So what's happening here is, maybe let's read one by one and we will understand more. Okay, so far what we have done is we have just copied their example code and pasted here, and we run through the code, and then we unpacked each result and see where to access each information. So the first response is it's thinking. Then in the content second response, you can see the ID, input, and name. So these two information are very much important, so that we will know like what function to call and what parameter to pass. Because our question is, what's the weather like in San Francisco? But to know San Francisco, we need to know what input to pass. It should be like San Francisco, comma, California. So the model uses its own knowledge and it responds this. So now let's read this and try to understand more. So how tool use works. So provide Claude with tools and user prompt. So we have done that. This is the tool, and we will try to learn how to create tools. But for now, let's assume we have provided some tool. The tool is get weather, and we added some description, and then we also defined how the input schema looks like what are the important parameters. Here the location is important. That's why it's required. And location, we said type as string, and description, we create some description to define this location. the city and state, example San Francisco, California. Cool. So let's read this. Define tools with names, descriptions, and input schemas in our API request. We have done this. Include a user prompt that might require these tools. What's the weather like in San Francisco? Since we are talking about weather, it accesses this weather function and it will tell you what to pass. Claude decides to use a tool. Claude assesses it if any tools can help with the user's query. If yes, Claude constructs a properly formatted tool use request, as you can see it here in the second response. The API response has a stop reason. You can see the stop reason as tool use. You can see it here. I think that would be different. Response. Okay. So response dot stop reason. You can see tool use. Signaling Claude's intent. Then extract tool input, run code, and return results. So it's our responsibility to run that code, get weather, and then pass the parameter and get some response. Then Claude uses a tool result to formulate a response. Claude analyzes the tool results to craft its final response to the original prompt. So step 3 and 4 are optional. For some workflows, Claude's tool use request, step 2 might be all you need without sending results back to Claude. So Claude doesn't have any tools. All the tools are provided by us. So we have to write functions, how to get the weather information, things like that. So in today's session, we will write 2 functions and then we will implement Claude's function calling like tool use. Okay, now let's read this. How to implement tool use. Choosing a model. Generally use Claude 3 Opus for complex tools and ambiguous queries. It handles multiple tools better and seeks clarification when needed. Use Haiku for straightforward tools, but note it may infer missing parameters. So since Haiku is cheap and fast, it's a small model. For complex tasks, I usually prefer Opus or Sonnet. For super easy tasks like getting weather information, things like that, I might prefer Haiku because it's fast and cheap, things like that. Okay, now let's talk about specifying tools. Let me see this. Okay, a few questions. Let's go through. You might need to install these libraries for tonight's notebook. Pip install DuckDuckGo search, yfinance, matplotlib. Perfect. Yeah, we have to just copy these code and put it in a cell. That will install all the libraries that we are going to use tonight. You guys find signing up to Claude's using Google account? Yes, I use my Google account to sign up. Or you can also don't have to do that. If you have any other email, you can also do that. Arun, just to clarify, OpenAI API doesn't currently have functionality to force an assistant to use a tool, right? I think OpenAI API also has forcing tool usage is there. Yeah, they introduced that too. Cool. Okay, so now let's read this one. Let me zoom. Okay, how to implement tool use. We know what model to use based on the task. Then specifying tools. Tools are specified in the tools top level parameter of API request. Like this, tools. Each tool definition includes name, description, input schema. So here it has some name. The name of the tool must match this format. Then description, a detailed plain text description of what a tool does, when it should be used, and how it behaves. So a detailed description, which is very helpful. If I'm working on some complex tools, I might write more here in the description so that the model knows what tool to use. Input schema. Here, input schema, which is a JSON schema object defining the expected parameters for the tool. So you can see the expected parameters, type, properties required. And they provided some example. Here, JSON, name, description, input schema. In the input schema, they use location and unit. So this tool named getWeather expects an input object with a required location string and an optional unit string that must be either Celsius or Fahrenheit. So you can see enum. So in the enum, you can mention it could be like Celsius and Fahrenheit. If you have like defined options, you can put that in enum so that the model won't randomly pick some values. It will force itself to choose anything from here. If I'm working on some complex task, I try to give the model a variety of input in the enum. Cool. Okay, now let's talk about some best practices for tool definitions. To get the best performance out of Claude when using tools, follow these guidelines. Provide extremely detailed description. So this example is very simple one. So we use just like get the current weather in given location. But if the task is super complex, write extremely detailed descriptions. So this is by far the most important factor in tool performance. Your descriptions should explain every detail about the tool, including what the tool does, when it should be used, and when it should not be used. This is also important. What each parameter means and how it affects the tool's behavior. Any important caveats or limitations, such as what information the tool does not return if the tool name is unclear. The more context you can give Claude about your tools, the better it will be at deciding when and how to use them. Aim for at least 3-4 sentences per tool description, more if the tool is complex. Since the large language model is all about like plain text, try to be very descriptive. That will be helpful for the models. So prioritize description over examples. While you can include examples of how to use a tool in its description or in the accompanying prompt, this is less important than having a clear and comprehensive explanation of the tool's purpose and parameters. Only add examples after you have fully fleshed out of description. It's very important to write the descriptions than providing some examples. Then you can see some example of a good description. Get stock price. You can see the description is very clear. They have provided a very detailed description, which is good. Then poor one. Get stock price, just like a small description. Get the stock price for a ticker. So sometimes even when I'm teaching something like to quickly type something, I try to type something like that, but try to use something like this, or maybe write something like this and copy this and use ChatGPT or any other model and ask it to write more on the description. That will be like quick and easy. Maybe I'll do that, like just copy this, I write something like this, then I use some large language model to do that. Since I'm using an editor called Cursor, I can access large language model here. Here I paste the things, write detailed description for function calling. Run this. Okay, so here you can see tools name something. Yeah, and you can, so since it accessed the entire notebook, it has also provided few other details. But for now, just copy this and replace this one with the more detailed one. Cool. So controlling Claude's output, forcing tool use. So sometimes, let's say you are getting some input from customer, and then before answering some response, you need to verify um, if the if the question is legit. In that case, you can use a function calling like always force it to pass some function. For example, let's say you are working for Tesla and someone asking questions about Apple in their chatbot, like Apple company. You don't have to even though your large language model knows the answer about Apple, you don't have to respond those things. In that case, you take the request from user and pass it to some tool use like a force tool use, and then based on that you can respond. If it's related to Tesla, you can answer. You can also do the same using system prompting and mode prompting. This is also other way to modify things. So in some cases, you may want Claude to use a specific tool to answer the user's question, even if Claude thinks it can provide an answer without using a tool. So as we go through in the previous one, even though we asked some questions about current weather, it tried to answer something without accessing the weather. So in that case, you can force it to always access some functions before answering. So tool choice. Type tool, name get weather. So when working with the tool choice parameter, we have three possible options. Auto allows Claude to decide whether to call any provided tools or not. This is the default value. So since auto is default, I didn't write it here. Any tells Claude that it must use one of the provided tools, but doesn't force a particular tool. Then tool allows us to force Claude to always use a particular tool. So here some example. Type auto, type any. Here name, send email like type tool. If the type is tool, you need to mention what tool to use automatically. So note that when you have tool choice as any or tool, we will pre-fill the assistant message to force a tool to be used. This means that the models will not emit a chain of thought text content block before tool use content blocks even. Okay, so what they mean is, let's say you are providing type as tool and send email, then what they are doing is they are forcing the model with some pre-fill value. So what I mean is role user content. There is also one more role called assistant. In assistant, we can force the model to start the response from that. Maybe let me quickly show you. So this one, messages API JSON. So here, what I'm doing is, this is my user prompt, and I am also pre-filling something. Role assistant content, here is a JSON requested. Then I'm asking the model to take it from here. And if you see the response takes from this bracket and it fills the rest. So this is how you force the model to start from some particular token. So here I'm using the assistant. The same way, they force the model to use some tool like pre-filling values in their backend. Okay, tools do not necessarily need to be client-side functions. You can use tools anytime you want the model to return JSON output that follows a provider schema. For example, you might use a record summary tool with a particular schema. So what they mean is, even though we haven't written any function like get weather, still we can provide the schema and ask it to return some JSON. Let's say you want something as a JSON output. You can use function calling to do that. Here we got some JSON output. Similarly, let's say you want to translate something. You can create a function like translates, and then you can get the response. So even though we don't have to create a function to translate things automatically, the input goes there. That would be very helpful. So this is another way to get some JSON output. So this is new, chain of thought. I mean, this is the old concept, but this is new in recent tool usage update. So when using tools, Claude will often shows its chain of thought, that is step-by-step reasoning it uses to break down the problem and decide which tools to use. The Claude 3 Opus model will do this if tool choice is set to auto. This is the default value. And Sonnet and Haiku can be prompted into doing this. I think for Claude Opus model, it provides the reasoning automatically. You can see the reasoning. And if you use different model, it won't do that. It will just provide the results. For example, given the prompt, what's the weather like in San Francisco right now? What time it is there? Claude might respond with, you can see thinking, this is chain of thought. To answer this question, I will use the get weather tool to get the current weather in San Francisco. Use the get time tool to get the current time in America or Los Angeles time zone, which covers San Francisco. So this is the thinking. This is called chain of thought. So this chain of thought gives insight into Claude's reasoning process and can help you debug unexpected behavior. With the Claude 3 Sonnet model, chain of thought is less common by default, but you can prompt Claude to show its reasoning by adding something like, before answering, explain your reasoning step by step in tags. So if you do that in Sonnet and Haiku, it will also explain everything step by step. But in Claude Opus model, it's doing automatically. They have prompted in that way. It's important to note that while the thinking tags are common convention Claude uses to denote its chain of thought, the exact format, such as what this XML tag is named, may change over time. Your code should treat the chain of thought like any other assistant generated text and not rely on the presence of specific formatting like thinking. So even though it says thinking, sometimes it might change in future. So don't try to extract information based on the keyword thinking to show you the thinking. Cool. So handling tool use and tool result content blocks. So as you see here, the function will return a few things: ID and function name and function input. ID, input, and name. So these are the three things. So ID, a unique identifier for this particular tool use block. This will be used to match up the tool results later. Then name, the name of the tool being used. In our case, the name is getWeather. And input, an object containing the input being passed to the tool, confirming to the tool's use. So here the name is getWeather, and this is the input that we can pass to the model. So here you can see some of the successful tool result. This is very similar to what we got here. Example of tool result with images. Example of empty tool result, which is failed one. After receiving the tool result, Claude will use that information to continue generating a response to the original user prompt. So what are the differences from other API? Unlike APIs that separate tool use or use special rules like tool or function, Anthropic APIs integrates tools directly into the user and assistant message structure. Messages contain array of text, image, tool use, and tool result blocks. User messages include client-side content and tool result, while assistant messages contain AI generic content and tool use. So we will see this clearly in our examples. And you can see some of the troubleshooting errors. And you can see more tool use examples. So single tool example, click Python, and you can see this is getWeather, which is more detailed. And you also see some response. So multiple tool example. So in today's session, we'll be doing multiple tools, and you pass multiple functions like this. Then missing information. Then sequential tools. So this is the question, what's the weather like where I am? It has to use get location and get weather. So this is the sequence. So it knows what order to follow. So Claude supports multiple tool calls. So chain of thought tool use, as we can see here. Then JSON mode. This can be also done without creating any functions. Cool. And you can see the pricing. The pricing is very similar to messages API. And if you are using function calling, it will take some additional tokens. Cool. And you can also go through these projects. Customer service agent. It's very new. Yeah, you can also run everything and try to understand. Maybe let's focus on ours quickly. So if you see my code, I am doing a few things. One is get stock data. So this get stock data, it uses some stock code, and it will respond some stock data. Then there is one more function, plot and save stock graph, that takes the stock data and stock code. Then it plots everything there. Maybe let's run this and see what's going on. I'm asking like Microsoft code, and it found the Microsoft data, and then it plots everything. Cool. Then I have created one more function like DuckDuckGo search, finding the news article. You can see Microsoft News, and you will get some response. So you got the current news of Microsoft. Let's run this. And here you can see some current news. NVIDIA surpasses Microsoft to become the largest public company in the world. Yeah, you can see a lot of news about Microsoft. Cool. And so this is just a display. So currently today's hot news is NVIDIA surpasses Microsoft to become the largest public company in the world. You will see all the news are related to NVIDIA and Microsoft. Cool. It's crazy. So here I am creating a prompt. The prompt is I get some company stock name and analyze the following stock news for the Microsoft. And here I'm analyzing all the title and descriptions. So that's my prompt. The news prompt looks like this. Yep. And then I'm using the stock data as an image. So Microsoft stock graph, which is here. Let's run this. So even though we are using an image, we need to convert that to text. To do that, we use base64 library. Base64 library responds everything as a string. Here you can display first 100 characters. The first 100 characters looks like this. You pass these information to the model. The model will know how to understand these things. Then it will analyze everything and give you a response. So here you are an expert stock market analyst, and I am providing the image and I am providing the stock data. Let's run this. So it uses these two. It's taking some time. Okay, we got some response. Based on stock price graph, Microsoft stock has shown an overall upward trend over the past 3 months, reaching a high of around 445 in mid-June 2024. However, recent news articles indicate that NVIDIA has surpassed Microsoft to become the world's most valuable company, driven by investor excitement over NVIDIA's role in the AI boom. Despite this development, Microsoft remains a strong player in the tech industry. The stock's upward trajectory suggests positive investor sentiment, likely due to the company's diverse product portfolio, steady revenue streams, and investments in emerging technologies like AI and cloud computing. Looking ahead, while Nvidia's rise may put some pressure on Microsoft stock in the short term, Microsoft's fundamentals remain solid. The company's strong market position, robust financial performance, and strategic investments are likely to support its long-term growth prospects. And here it predicts a few numbers. Cool. These predictions are based on the assumption that the overall market sentiment remains stable and no significant negative news or events impact Microsoft or broader tech sector. Investors should keep a close eye on any development related to Microsoft's AI initiatives, as well as its competition with NVIDIA and other tech giants. Cool. Now we can do the same with function calling. So these are the two functions I'm going to use. So this is Apple stock and Apple's news. Then I defined tools. So one is get stock price, get news summary, and I have written a detailed description for both. You can I think this is good. We can also elaborate more if needed, but I'm happy with this. So my question is, should I invest in NVIDIA stock? Let's run this. Okay, because we used, this is the code from last time. They changed the tools to, they removed the beta. So let's delete this. Let's run this. Let me see. Okay, so let's define client. We don't have to do that. Since client.messages.create, just delete the tools. Okay, so here, model and max tokens, tools, we define the tools, and then role something. Let's run this. So as you can see, there are some changes happened last month. They removed the beta and now they used a new model. I'm glad that we are running everything. So here you can see the stop reason. The stop reason is tool use. Now these are the available tools. Let's see why it stopped, what function it's asking us to call. You can see the stop reason is get stock price, and this is the parameter to pass. Now I'm getting the function ticker, and let's run this. Here, this is NVIDIA stock. It's going crazy. And stock file data. Let's run this. It opens the image and read everything as a data string. Now I have to delete these things. Client.messages.create, model, max tokens, tools, and messages. Let's run this. Okay. Now this is the keywords we have to search. NVIDIA Corporation, NVDA. And now let's run this. That will give us all the news. Now pass all the information here. So I have written everything like a sequence for teaching, but I recommend you to use the while loop and then put everything in a function and check the stop reason. If the stop reason is not related to tools, you can you can stop. If it's related to tools, just run the tool and get the response, pass it to the model. So these are the model's response. based on the stock price graph and provided news articles, performance and future outlook, positive catalyst, potential risk. Overall, the outlook for Nvidia appears very positive based on its AI leadership, but the stock may be due to fall some after its huge run. Barring any major 90 news, I expect the stock to continue its long-term uptrend. 3-day prediction, it predicts something. Cool. I hope you find this session very helpful. I will also share my updated notebook. We did a few changes. One is previously it was like client.beta.tools. Now it's just client.messages.create. Rest, everything works. Thanks everyone. See you all next time. Cool.